Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ya ayyuhal Muslimun. To the long-time listener and first-time visitor, we welcome you to this episode. Now, without further ado, let's get into it.
Alhamdulillah, just long story, extremely summarized. I went to seek knowledge because I always wanted to know for myself, right? And again, this could be, inshallah ta'ala, maybe a whole nother episode where we get in more into that. But I wanted to know for myself. And one of the things that sometimes I would get back and forth with some of the people of my town, from them, Dr. Hassan and some other ones, right? We'll get into debates about the deen because I'll be learning stuff, right? So remember, I became Muslim 93. So around that time, 93, 94, I was introduced to like Dawood Adib and things like that. Jazakallahu khairah. So the things I was learning from him, I will go back to my local masjid and I'll be talking about some of these things. And these were people that they were not upon the Sunnah. So they will have opposition to certain things. So we would get into debates at the time. Dr. Hassan in particular, that's why he sticks out in my mind in particular, right? He would always catch me with, well, you don't understand Arabic, so this is what's leading to maybe your misunderstanding of these certain topics. And that will always end the conversation because it was like, okay, touche. Yeah, okay. All right. But again, like I said, my background, wanting to learn, to study, being an avid reader, things like that. And, literature was always something that I was very, I loved. When I graduated high school, I was in honors class for English Lit. So I said, you know what? Okay, brother, man. I'm gonna have to change that. So you're gonna stop saying that to me. You're gonna stop saying that to me. Okay. So that was one of the things that really encouraged me to learn. Now, I applied for the University of Medina, and I was accepted to the University of Medina in 1995. I was, due to my youth and hastiness and things like that, I didn't prepare things properly, so I wasn't able to stay in Medina, right? But Allah's earth is spacious. I said to myself, now I'm just gonna learn somewhere else, So upon returning from Medina in 95, I said, nah, it's not, this is not it. I'm not going to just stay here in America. No, it's not going to work. So I kept trying to get back into Medina. That didn't come to fruition. Otherwise, other schools I applied for, all the Jamiat in Saudi I applied for. At the time, you had Abu Nur in Syria. This was a school. Some people who were my classmates, because they say, "Tuyur ala ashkaliha taqa," birds of a feather flock together. So a lot of the young youth that I was around, they were people that they were concerned. We should study Tajweed, we would study Qur'an, we would memorize, we would do things like that. They were trying to learn Arabic from Medina books best we could. This was the crew. But not all of them was on the Sunnah though. Remember, I'm a senior high school, so not all of them was on the Sunnah. So some of them they went off to Syria to study. But then when they were coming back, the stuff they were telling me, they were really big on Hamza Yusuf and Zay Shakir and things like this. So they would come back, and what I was seeing from them was, one, they had to madhab. They all, we were stressing you had to take a madhab. A lot of them were Shafi'i, things like that. Then they had this book, Reliance of the Traveler, they would study from, things like that. So it had some Sufi undertones. I remember when I went to Medina, I took it with me because I was like, brother, I need to check this out. Just like the big thing around my town. But I don't know about it. It's saying some weird stuff in the footnotes. So one of the brothers there, he had graduated from the school of Sharia, I believe, if I remember correctly. He was like, nah, this, he said the author is, this guy's, the translator, excuse me, Noor Hamim Kelly, he said he's adding some Sufi stuff in it, in the appendix and the footnotes. He's calling it the tasawwuf. It's not correct. So yeah, some of my friends, and they went to that path. So when I'm sitting there looking at options, I said, okay, well, that school, that's not an option because they teaching straight Sufism there. I'm not interested in that. So what else is going on? So we had Yemen. So I was trying to go to Yemen. At the time, my wife, she was pregnant. We had our son, and she was pregnant with my daughter. But again, I said, we gotta get out of here. I gotta go study. And that was one of the things too. I couldn't bring my family to Medina. I had a young family, and I'm big on family, So I said, it was really difficult for me, very difficult. So I'm looking for options I can bring my family. Okay. So Egypt became, now Abu Hafsa and a few of the brothers, they had went to Egypt when I was going into the 12th grade. So in the beginning of that year, when I was a school year, when I was going to the 12th grade, they were shipping off and they were going to Egypt to learn. So they preceded me by going to Egypt for a year. So that's my whole year in 12th grade, they were in Egypt. So I kept saying, okay, once I graduate high school, so I told mother said, listen, I don't mind you going to study, but you got to finish high school. Because again, I was getting a grade, I was in honor classes. So I was able, to go the college route. And my advisors and counselors, guidance counselors, stuff like that, they were telling me, well, just go to college and then go to overseas. And I was like, no, I'm gonna go overseas because college is here, gonna be there. I go to college and I get back. I ain't worried about that. I'm not really interested in that anyway. So mother was like, listen, here's the deal. Finish high school, then go study overseas, no problem. So I said, all right, I got to finish high school. So the brothers left. So they were overseas for that year. Some of them came back because of money issues or what have you before going back to study. So some of them came back. When they came back, these, my friends, my crew, so they were telling me about Egypt. So I'm looking at now, I said, okay, I got friends coming back from Syria and I got friends coming back from Egypt. Friends come back from Syria, they straight on some Sufi stuff to the point where we stopped being friends. I'm just being honest with you. We stopped being friends. Because it was just, nah, I'm good. We just grew apart, it wasn't what they was on and stuff like that. We grew apart, right? So I said, well, Egypt. I'm gonna go to Egypt until, for now, because I heard about Yemen and the healthcare system in Yemen, things like that. Mind you, my wife's pregnant. We went to Egypt. She was like, I don't know, 7 months pregnant or so. Like right before the airlines tell you can't fly no more. That's what she was like when we went to Egypt. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to Egypt then, because I don't want to waste no time. I'll go to Egypt, we're gonna study, and then once she has the baby, because I heard Egypt has some good healthcare, and alhamdulillah, they do. I had 2 of my children were born there. So I said, we're gonna go to Egypt, she's gonna have this baby. After she had this baby, we settled and we strong, then we just gonna bounce to Yemen, no problem. That was the original plan. It never happened, stayed in Egypt, but that was the plan. That's what got us to Egypt. And then when I get to Egypt, that's why I said we have to do a whole nother thing, because subhanAllah. We get to Egypt, right? Beautiful brother, Abdul Muhammad, not the same Abdul Muhammad from when I was little. Another one, beautiful brother. Beautiful, may Allah Ta'ala reward him, bless him tremendously, man. He's from North New Jersey. He had it laid out. He had 2 apartments set up for me, right? 2 apartments. When we got there, he said, listen, you can either stay in this apartment or I got another apartment in my building. You can stay over here. It's your choice. So I got there. They took care of everything. You know what I mean? They made it so easy. Apartments was furnished, everything. I just, plug and play, as they say. And because they know my wife, my wife is pregnant. I got a little baby. It's like one and a half, something like that at the time. And my wife is pregnant. So it's like, we have to make it comfortable for them. So when I got there, it was plug and play. Which house you want? So I ended up picking a house in Pampa. Very nice, with Sheikh Muhammad Budur, rahmatullah alayhi. Very, very instrumental, beautiful brother, helped me so much. But who do you think was there with a big old Kool-Aid smile to meet me my first day in Egypt, my first night in Egypt? Who do you think was there to come and get me? Abu Hafsa Muawiyah, same brother that gave me da'wah to Islam, was the same brother that helped me with my studies. He was there because he'd been there for a year studying already. So he had already learned Arabic. He learned a lot of the Qur'an, things like that. He was rolling. Who you think there to come help me get acclimated? Abu Hafsa. First night, man, Abu Hafsa there. Me, Abu Hafsa, Abdul Muhammad, mashallah. It brings tears to me, But they helped me tremendously. So then I went on from there, from Egypt, just fast forward. I studied in Egypt for a total of 6 years. At one point was in Azhar, because at one point you start being there so long, they're like, how you keep getting tourist visas? How much you need this? How much time is gonna take you to see everything? This is one person in immigration told me one time. So I was like, all right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I was enrolled in Azhar, studied, never really went to class, to be honest with you, because they didn't care about attendance as long as you show up and pass the test. So we get the books and study back in the Ville, because in the Ville we had people that were they were students of Azhar, but they were upon the Sunnah, they were Salafi. So they we would go through the books with them. They would bring out all the nonsense, and we would just study those books. it was at that time where I started to gravitate towards the Hanbali madhab, away from Sheikh Albani. Sheikh Albani, just Ahl Hadith, you know what I mean? Not so much taking a madhab per se, but it's Ahl Hadith. But everyone who in Egypt, the Salafis in Egypt, especially the ones in Azhar, the role was you go to Azhar, you major in fiqh, right? And you go to the school of Sharia, and you go there, you major, and you take your major as the Hanbali madhab, and then as a minor, you pick another madhab. So whichever one you want, you know what I mean? So all of the books that we were learning from were all the books of the Hanabila, to be honest with you. So when people ask me, and I didn't necessarily understand that at the time, just listen to, Sheikh Uthaymeen, Sheikh Fawzan, things like this. And that's what they were teaching, basically. So we start studying from the books of Ibn Qudama and some of the marakas they had there. So in addition, we're studying with some of the mashaykh that were there at the time, who were from, the students of Sheikh Albani, like Sheikh Abdul Azim Badawi, I used to study with for a long time. We will also, in these marakas, these centers of learning, we will study these other things, right? So I'm studying all these, books of the Hanabila, Tafsir, Tafsir Sa'di, things like that. So years later, after reflecting and looking back, because even at this time, I would tell people, I don't have a madhab. I'm just, I'm all the madhab. I live all the madhab. I go with the truth, wherever it is. But years later, after looking back, it came a point where I had to acknowledge the fact that, no, I'm Hanbali, because all of the fiqh that I know, for the most part, are from the books of the Hanabila, or the opinions of the Hanabila. You won't find my opinions going outside the opinions of the Hanabila. Why? Because that's what I was taught. Of course, with the caveat that it's based upon the evidences. Where it doesn't coincide with the evidence, no, we're going against the madhab. And Sheikh Uthaymeen was very instrumental upon my life as it relates to that, as I would follow his classes as best I could from Egypt, and get every book that he wrote. Basically that I get my hands on. Likewise with Sheikh Albani, I will get every tape that I can get with Sheikh Albani, Sheikh Mukbil, Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami. Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami was very instrumental upon me. Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami, rahmatullahi alayhi. Sheikh Mukbil, very instrumental, right? These were some of the mashaykh that really shaped me and molded me from afar while I was studying in Egypt, with the likes of Sheikh Rabi Badawi, Sheikh Mustafa al-Adawi, so on and so forth. Some of them, they have fallen into error, right? Or they have fallen into error. We don't hide and shy away from this fact. But historically, that's who I was studying with at the time. You know what I mean? And I don't shy away from saying that. And others, Sheikh Amr Abdul Mun'im, I studied with, extensively. He lived right around the corner from me. We were neighbors. We became friends, right? So I studied with him a lot. And other mashayikh, from the mashayikh and other marakas there in Egypt. And then upon leaving Egypt, there was a time frame all the way up into COVID where we would go to Saudi every year for Umrah. One year we went for nearly a month or so. And while there, we would study with Sheikh Muhammad Adam Ethiopi, Sheikh Wasi Allah, Sheikh Abdul Razak Badr, Sheikh Sulaiman Ruhaili. These were the four mashayikh that pretty much I never missed their classes. The two when I was in Mecca, and also the two when I was in Medina, I would never miss their classes. And then when we had time, the likes of Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abad was studying with. When Sheikh Rabi'a was still in Mecca, every time that we were there, we would attend his classes in Mecca. And likewise, we would visit him when he was in Medina. But as far as like class wise, those first four mashaykh that I mentioned, they were some of the most instrumental upon me. Likewise, Sheikh Osama al-Taybi, who became, very close, friend and confidant and teacher. I benefited tremendous from him a lot, and he was very helpful to us. And again, this is not, everyone, no one is perfect. Everyone has their, things, right? So we have to always take that into consideration. But I have, much love and for the mashaykh, and very, what would you say? Just, a lot of love and respect for them. You know what I mean? And what we learned from Shaykh Uthaymeen was that the ulama, they are not proof, but they need proof. Also, one time, one of the Mashaykh, he mentioned to me, he said that and likewise, I heard Shaykh Al-Aziz al-Shaykh, he mentioned this, is that the Mashaykh, they are human, and there's not a single scholar except that they'll have strange opinions, something that is strange to all, that all can see. And this is because these are reminders to us that the ulama, they are humans. The ulama, they are humans. So we follow the truth, and where the Mashaykh has made a mistake and made an error, then we don't follow him in that mistake and in that error. But this doesn't remove the respect and the admiration that we may have for that particular scholar and the appreciation for what they have done to help the ummah. But when they make a mistake, we don't follow that mistake. But just because they made a mistake, that doesn't mean we start now to speak bad about them and curse them and things like that, right? Now, of course, I'm talking about things that are, mistakes. I'm not talking about things that will take you outside the sunnah. I'm not talking about that type of. I'm talking about things that, are a mistake. The sheikh, he made a mistake. He made an error. He based his opinion on, certain factors that didn't really add up at the end. So nonetheless, I don't follow them in that. And this pretty much going back, back and forth to Saudi. This continue every year, from then until COVID. Once COVID came, that threw a monkey wrench in the program. So we weren't able to go, and I haven't been back since. But inshallah ta'ala, I plan to go back soon, inshallah ta'ala, but I had not been back since. But nonetheless, those mashayikh, like especially Sheikh Muhammad bin Adam al-Ethiopi and Sheikh Abdul Razak Badr, their classes were broadcast on the YouTube pages and on their personal platforms that they would do. So those classes that we attended in the Haram, and said likewise with Sheikh Sulaiman Ruhaili from Mixla and things like that. So from the same classes that we would attend in person, so there was a portion of the year that we would attend the classes in person, and then the other parts of the year we would attend the classes online. Same class, we would just continue to pick up where we left off, but we couldn't do it in person because we in America and they in Saudi. So this went on, and to this very day. To this very day, it's the same thing. Of course, not with Sheikh Muhammad Adba Ethiopia, he passed away, rahmatullahi alayhi. And Sheikh Abdul Muhsin, he retired from teaching, but so he's still following the rules from the Haramain, still following the rules of Sheikh Abdul Razak, Sheikh Sulaiman al-Ruhaili, the rules of Sheikh Wasi Allah, still to this day. And alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity to meet each of these mashayikh in person. Sheikh Muhammad Adam in Ethiopia, this is a story within itself, subhanAllah. He invited us to his house, gifted us with a bunch of books and gave some very precious advice. Just a beautiful person, would make jokes with us and laugh. We had this thing where he didn't like being, kissed in his forehead. So he would always tell me, Abdis Salaam. He would go like this and tell Abdis Salaam, like, don't do it. And I would always look at him and smile and give that nod, like, I'm going to do it. So I would hug him and I would give him a kiss because I missed him so much and I have so much love for him. And he would just look at me and just shake his head and say, how about this? Don't do with you, man. But the sheikh was beautiful, and his students were so beautiful and kind to us. I can't even tell you. Like we would come there around the same time every year, so they got to know us, right? And we were sitting in the class, and the person that sat right on the right hand side of the sheikh's chair, where all the recorded devices and phones would be on the arm of the chair, they would allow me to come and sit right there under the sheikh. Right? They was like, all right, when you come, this your spot. It's my spot throughout the year, like real for real. But when you come, I'm gonna let you sit here, just because you came all this way trying to learn. I'm gonna let you sit right here. So I would sit there, and I would became helper of the arranging the recorded device, make sure they don't fall, things like that. And it was just a beautiful thing. But I learned so much from the sheikh as he went over the summarized explanation of Tafsir ibn Kathir and other books of hadith, benefited from him and learned from him tremendously. And then likewise, Sheikh Ahmed Hamdan, who's Egyptian, but he resides in Saudi, very close friend of our beloved brother, Abu Yusuf Khalifa, who introduced us to him because they studied together also in Egypt. And then, so we introduced and got to know him from there, and became very close with him as well, him and his family. And again, like I told you, I'm very big on my family, right? So outside of the first year I went, every other year I went to Saudi, for the most part, I brought my family with me, right? So when we had opportunities, to eat with the mashaykh and things like that, I would bring my family every time there's an opportunity. Sheikh Ahmed Bazmoul, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, we had, opportunities where we were in gatherings and banquets and things like that. And I would bring my family. My family, they would meet, the wives of the mashaykh and things like that. Likewise in Egypt, she studied with the wives of the mashaykh and studied as well. So it was always a thing. So, alhamdulillah, when I'm telling you about these mashaykh, it's not just them in the student, type setting, but also, to the point where, my family would meet their family, we would eat with them and things like that. And especially Sheikh Ahmed Bazmoul, Sheikh Adil Mansour, it was at times where we would go and we would sit with them and eat and laugh and talk and joke, and they would teach us all the way from after Isha to, subhanAllah, sometimes right before Fajr. But they gave us that time because they knew, we would, we try to get as much in as possible. We have a limited time. We got to leave in a couple of weeks. So we just try to act as much as we can, learn as much as we can, everything. So, I learned so much from them, and they were so kind and gentle and understanding. It is so much that could be said, but I don't want to make this too much, but this is, it's a glimpse, just a glimpse of the beauty, of knowledge and seeking knowledge and the people of knowledge. People of knowledge, the true people of knowledge, they're very kind, very gentle, very understanding, very warm and open. They don't sit on pedestals. It was one time, to give you an example, we were eating, and this was days and days and days, we were eating rice and chicken, and it was good food, really good food, but it was pretty much kind of the same dish every day. So I remember one time we were sitting, we were eating, and some of the younger students, they were in the other room. So like some of the teenagers and people in their early 20s, they were in the back room, they were eating pizza. I remember Sheikh Ahmed Bazmoul, he came, he sat next to me, and he said, what are we eating today? So I said, rice, chicken. He was like, what they eating in there? I said, pizza. He said, I'll be back. I want pizza. I'm going to eat with them. And he went and he ate with the young students. This is the mashayikh. Ate with the young students. And of course, I wasn't tired of the rice and chicken. It was really, really good. So I was still eating the rice and chicken. I was sitting next to Sheikh Adil Mansour, and we were talking and things. But you can hear the sheikh in the other room, laughing, and the students are laughing. He's joking with them while they eating pizza. And then when everybody was done eating, and the only reason it was like that because there wasn't enough room for everyone to eat in the same room. If there was enough room to eat in the same room, we'd all eat in the same room. But there wasn't enough room, so we had to break it up. But afterwards, once the food leaves, everybody was in the same room. We talking and going back and forth. But anyway, these were some of the experience with the mashaykh, and this how the mashaykh they are. So when you find these people, who you don't see this type of behavior from them, but they want to claim knowledge, this is a red flag. It's a red flag. It's not, the sheikh don't act like you, this holier than thou type of thing. We're above you. You go over there. You commoner. I'm this, and we eat together, and every other commoners eat over there, and so on and so forth. No, man, we had a banquet one time, and the classes are there on Salafi Inc. It was a number of mashaykh, and they all gave some benefit. And there's a video, I don't have the video version, but you can see it where the students are sitting, it's like out in the desert somewhere in one of the mukhayyam, one of the tents. Really, really nice setup, had a banquet because somebody was having an aqiqah, if I'm not mistaken, right? So anyway, all the mashaykh was sitting on the thing, and then they told us, y'all come sit up here too. Abu Yusuf Khalifa, he translated for them. And they really made us feel special. We're not special. Well, I'm not special. Those brothers, mashallah, they really, mashallah, tabarakallah. But I'm not special. But they was like, no, alhamdulillah, come sit up here. Come sit up here too as well. And they honored us with that. And then that shows you how they're very humble. And one of the mashaykh, I forget his name, but one of the mashaykh that I was unaware of him actually until that day. They brought everyone shmals. brought everyone shmals. Like the ghutra, the ghutra that they wear in Saudi, the thicker one, some are white and red, and some are all white, but with that same pattern, right? They bought us all of those. I mean, like really nice ones, right? And he gifted all the students with those. This is the type of stuff. We come there to seek knowledge, and not only they're giving us knowledge and they're giving us from their time, then they give us gifts. Ask for to give us gifts, give us free books, all this type of stuff, right? And then when the class was over, when the benefit was over, now it's time to eat, they didn't all get up and go eat in a separate room. No, they dispersed. And you know what? They didn't even eat together. Why? Because there was so many students there that we had to form circles, and a big plate of rice, and dish of rice and meat and everything is there. It couldn't fit everybody. So however many people could fit around there, that's how many people fit around there. So there was a bunch of those all around. And because there was a number of mashayikh, and the mashayikh know that the students, they capitalize on opportunities, they still want to ask questions, they didn't sit together because that would have limited the benefit they was able to share with the people. So basically, at every circle or every plate, every dish, one sheikh would go and sit there so that the students around him could ask him whatever they want to ask him, or could, could talk to him and things like that. And they did it like that so that they could continue to benefit the students while we are even eating a meal. This is how the real scholars are. You know what I mean? The same thing happened with Sheikh Ahmed Hamdan's house. You had my Sheikh Hassan Abdul Hamid Ben Rahmatullah alayhi, he was there. Sheikh Adil Mansour, Sheikh Adil Sayyid, he was there. Sheikh Mahal Qatwani, he was there. Sheikh Wasiullah, he was there. And all the mashaykh, they gave benefit, and and it was such a beautiful thing. Another scholar was there. His name was Mismi Qurashi, I believe he was there. It was so beautiful. But the same thing, when it was time to eat, all the mashaykh spread out, and they ate in different circles, so it had different conversations with people, so that everybody could benefit from them collectively in such a beautiful setting. But anyway, these are just some experiences of that really had a great impact on my seeking of knowledge, on me as a person, my manner and approach, and dealing with people, and learning that adab. That's what I was able to learn adab from these mashayikh and that. And again, I apologize. I'm sorry it's so long. Like I said, man, I can go on. I got so much more I want to say and could say, but hey, I'm gonna leave it like that, inshallah ta'ala, until the next time.